all of us describe either consciously or subconsciously to Murphy's Law that, what can go wrong will go wrong. And I think that if you have the right people in place that have the know-how, but that also are just willing to pivot and make moves as the market demands, you'll always be in a place where you can help people who need different services. And I think that's really what we've gone back to time and again with each of the portfolio companies is just stay agile and always say, how can I help, as opposed to, I don't know how to do this.
Hello and welcome to the D2C podcast. I'm Eric Dick, along with co-host Kyle Guilfoyle, and today we are super lucky to have the brain trust behind the Diamond Hook Media Empire. We're going to be talking mainly about logistics, 3PL, and about the company Hook Logistics. Today we are super lucky to have Fraser Kinsley, the CEO of Hook Logistics, as well as Jacob Sussman, who is the head of marketing. They've been awesome to come on as a sponsor of the newsletter. Their content has been absolutely amazing. And I'm really excited to dive into this side of the business. I've always been in the information side, on the ad side when it comes to e-commerce, the information side doing this, but I actually haven't, sold a lot of e-commerce products through. So I'm really excited to talk with people that have, deep expertise in this specific area. Welcome to the podcast. How you doing today, Fraser?
Doing well. Thanks for having us on. I really appreciate it. Pumped to be here.
Nice. We always like to start with like a quick hit question. What would you say is your specific zone of genius?
It's tough to say. I'd say I'm maybe jack of all trades, master of none. I think as far as kind of my niche goes, definitely in the direct to consumer markets. Started out kind of got my feet wet with investing actually on the CPG side. So I'm actually invested in a few brands, a couple of which I think have actually been featured in the newsletter. So that's kind of how I got involved there, and kind of pivoted over to logistics on this side, just developing pain points with various founders. So stepping from my procurement background, dovetailed that together with my experience with founders in the CPG space. And we launched logistics just as a solution for founders, one that's more geared towards the pain points they have and less on just the straight operational side.
And was
awesome? Go ahead.
I was just going to say, was like, what experience, you talked about pain points. We always like to focus in on those. And what were you experiencing these pain points on the other, like talk a little bit about that journey, about what you realized needed to change in the space.
Yeah, definitely. So I think especially in the CPG space, and especially if you're a VC-backed company, there's always this want to develop an operating plan that has accurate numbers in it as far as your top and bottom line revenue goes. And a big piece of that for your cost of goods sold and operating costs are logistics and fulfillment costs. And oddly enough, it seems that the biggest piece in the direct consumer market is actually the most opaque. So we sought out to deliver a product that was really geared towards the operators of these various CPG direct-to-consumer brands. And in doing so, we're able to save them tons of money, but also tons of time in terms of their forecasting and the actual money they were spending on getting their products delivered to their customers.
Very cool. And is that just basically because, things have changed so much. The e-commerce game with the barriers, the barriers are getting lower all the time, but these systems that we've built on top of are sort of legacy systems in a way, right? They were built for a different kind of commerce. And I'm wondering, like, can you give me an example of something that Hook Logistics solves that is sort of a pain in the ass for a lot of people?
Yeah, so I think it really actually, it starts out fundamentally from an operations perspective, right? So if you bring on the right team and you have the right people and you have the right experience, that makes everything infinitely easier. I often say that a lot of times the fundamentals in fulfillment are overlooked, and a lot of times people rely on the tech stacks and the offerings that are out there, which for all intents and purposes are excellent. But we really wanted to return to the fundamentals of fulfillment, return to the fundamentals of pricing, what it actually costs to model out, a company's e-commerce fulfillment, for instance. So that's definitely a way that we really started there. And then also just being brand adjacent. So we wanted to be approachable. We wanted to brand ourselves like our brand adjacent direct to consumer customers are, have excellent branding, have excellent marketing, and be super approachable, and also just be super transparent. The base of the idea of direct to consumer is that you're cutting that middleman, and you're really delivering your products directly from the manufacturer, directly from the producer themselves. And we want to be a part of that and really offer that transparency through and through. And I think a lot, like to your point, a lot of the legacy systems don't actually encompass that, and that's kind of where the disconnect occurs. So we really wanted to bridge that gap there, and again dovetail with the industries we're working in.
Yeah, it sounds very cool. And Eric and I we're kind of media buyers at heart, so we're always thinking about ways to optimize performance. And I imagine there are tons of pockets of opportunity in fulfillment services, and I'm wondering if you could talk to us a bit about where you see those pockets of opportunity for DTC brands to optimize their performance using a service like Hook Logistics, for example.
Definitely. So I think a lot of times the 3PL offerings that are out there, a big part of the marketing piece is actually offering a lot of different warehouses and a ton of different locations. And while it seems great on the surface to say, wow, we have 30 different warehouse locations out there in the United States, it seems like the reach is very far. In reality, it actually just is very redundant. The way the logistics spheres work now, especially for what I would call small parcels, so UPS, FedEx, USPS, those zones are actually created and optimized within the carriers themselves. So there's actually no need to have really more than 3 or 4 warehouses nationwide. And again, going off those redundancies, if you kind of fall back to, again, like what's an optimized supply chain look like? We found that a happy medium is in that 3 to 4 warehouse range. So we say to customers, do you know what you're paying for? They say, oh, this is our pick and pack fee. And in reality, their products really only live in about, again, 3 or 4 warehouses. So it's the customer that's actually paying for those excess, 20 to 25 from the warehouse, and it's just baked into the cost. So in operating a super lean operation, we're actually able to pass on all of those savings to our customers in the form of a smaller pick and pack fee.
Huge. And that can mean when people are doing massive scales, like you're talking serious savings on their business.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we can save you in as little as 1 shipment, but again, it's just the law of large numbers. The more you go up, the more we're willing to scale up with you, and the more we can obviously cater to your needs. And again, it more goes back to the manpower and the fundamentals you have within your warehouse system. And obviously, technology is a great piece there, but we really don't want to have a huge physical footprint like a lot of the other companies that are in our space do.
So you mentioned, you're innovating on the physical side of things in terms of just creating optimized systems for the new reality of e-commerce. Can you give me an example of some of the ways you're innovating on the reporting side as well, where you're solving headaches because it's funny. My wife works for a gallery, and she is constantly trying to reconcile different systems and pulling results into legacy things. I'm curious on the reporting side of things, ways that you guys innovate as well.
Definitely. Yeah. So first and foremost, it was really, really important to us to know that we integrate directly with all of the e-commerce platforms that our customers use. Obviously, the lion's share goes to Shopify, but we didn't want to just limit it there. So we integrate with, I think it's over 100 plus different e-commerce platforms at this point. So if someone finds an e-commerce platform we don't integrate with, please let us know. We're happy to share open API with that. But yeah, I mean, we're fully integrated with most, if not all, of the major providers. So that was the first step. And the second step is to your point about reporting. We want to work in tandem with Shopify and actually, like I said, lessen up on the redundancies there and just offer further insights into things such as, do you have a lot of products that has an expiry date that has passed, or are these products that came in last year that still haven't sold yet? So things that Shopify might not be able to tell you in terms of sales velocity and order volume and all that stuff, but more on the actual inventory management side, it says, okay, well, like these SKUs have actually been here for a while. Maybe we should actually cut back on production on this. So it really goes from the top of the funnel back all the way to the bottom at the base level of the manufacturing, which again, really helps in the reporting side to cut costs there and also allow for super, super efficient processes as far as production goes. And then lastly, on the financial side, offering a single transparent rate gives our customers the ability to say, wow, this is a single line item on our balance sheet that is just a matter of our cost of goods sold. It's not a pick and pack fee, a return fee, an intake fee, a re-inventorying fee, none of that stuff. So we have one single fee. It's so much easier to model out, 1 to 6, 12 months down the line, because you're not having to worry about, a dozen to 2 dozen different line items.
And are those dependent on the vendor as well? Like, are they harder to predict as to how people charge and do different people do different things as well?
Are you saying on the customer side or on like the other 3PL side?
On the other 3PL side.
Yeah, so that's actually a lot of the experience we had this is kind of backtracking to the origin of this whole thing. During the COVID pandemic, one of our other sister companies was actually very involved in government and private sector procurement for PPE, and relied heavily on 3PL services. And we would get bills from them. It would be like, what are we actually paying for? And when we baked it down, we actually inquired about it. It was a whole litany of different things that started from the actual plugin to whatever e-commerce platform we were using, to inventorying, to intake, to outbound, to returns, to excess item pick fees. So it really ended up adding up to, I think it was about 18 to 20 different line items. And the way we just look at it is just, it's not really necessary. And if you have that optimized system in place, there's no need to actually charge all of those different line items.
I think that's something that will resonate with people quite a bit. I wanted to just backtrack. Questions I have about this side of things, but I just wanted to ask Jacob for a second. It's been great working with you on the content that you're putting into the newsletter on a weekly basis. Fraser mentioned something earlier before, and it's something I've actually noticed about your brand, is that it's very approachable. And I wanted to know, from the marketing side of things, we have a lot of different brands out there, and everyone would like, not everyone, I guess it's not for everyone, but a lot of brands would love to feel approachable. I wonder if you had any insight in how you've gone about creating an approachable brand.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I think it's great you picked up on approachable as the key word, because that's really what stuck out to me about the brand recently as well. So there was a kind of like turning point in how I thought about the Hook Logistics brand. Did you read that great piece in Bloomberg called "Welcome to Your Bland New World"? It was kind of like roasting D2C culture. Yeah, and that's like a great article in general. Whether you agree with its critique or not, or whatever your take is on the kind of homogenized D2C aesthetic. I think I loved how it really dug into like the brand voice, that's behind a lot of these brands. And even if you're tired of pastels, even if you think like too many of these brands have like first names like Oscar, Judy, whatever. There is this like casual warmth and personability that's become really common in consumer branding. And if you look at the 3PL market or the logistics market in general, it's kind of the total opposite. These are like older industrial brands, not at all, they don't feel like humans. They feel like massive corporations, or like a warehouse, like literally the personality of warehouse. And from day one with Hook Logistics, we knew we wanted this brand to fit into the D2C world, to appeal to like modern e-commerce brands. And I think we have kind of realized a mirroring effect with it too a bit, where like when you land on the Hook Logistics site, it feels actually closer to a consumer D2C brand, than the standard industrial 3PL website. And I think that's really been resonating with e-commerce customers in particular. Part of that is the style of the illustrations we use. It's very like delicate, almost feminine, style, again, contrasting a more masculine, bro-y 3PL aesthetic. And the copy, we spend a lot of time on the brand voice, and it's all origin from like a place of like warmth, empathy. It's lighthearted, playful. We speak to our customers like, we get them. We understand your frustrations with the 3PL market, and we just want to be, straight up with you, but also joke a little along the way. And that's carried it well into the content. We're putting up blog posts that try to make fulfillment and, e-commerce tactics in general as accessible as possible to anyone, so that, if you just end up on our site, you can leave with the skill set you need to set up an e-commerce operation. And yeah, we think that spirit, Fraser carries it forward in his sales, and our warehouse team carries it forward in their dedication, to providing outstanding fulfillment too.
Well, that's awesome. I think that I think an often overlooked piece of a brand is the brand voice, and you guys seem to have nailed it. So I'm wondering if you have any insight on how you guys developed it. Did you go through a process, or was it just kind of like, or did you in fact just happen upon it? Like how did you guys nail it so well?
It's funny. I saw a post on LinkedIn by Nick Sharma. Of course, if you're in D2C, you know him. And it really nailed what I've found to be the most effective approach for copywriting is just read it out loud over and over until it sounds great to you. At Diamond Hook, I've gotten to develop brand voices for, Squatty Potty, Holistic Wellness, as well as like our internal companies. And it's always just been, like really sitting down with a pen and paper, and, a brand identity workshop helps. I love, parsing out like personality traits and attributes that, you associate with the brand. But at the end of the day, wordsmithing is often just like a lot of time, with the language.
And
Totally.
sometimes it's going to come best from the, from the founders, from you. It's something we've just found. We've just brought on a new writer, and we in this last newsletter, she wrote a good chunk of what we put out there. And I think back to the brand brief that we created about how we wanted our voice to sound, and she's nailed it. Like, and she's someone who will go over the podcast and pull out all the value bombs and things like that. But really, it just comes from setting the tone, knowing how you want it to sound. I was just thinking this morning, though, how well her tone sounds exactly like the brief that we sort of gave her. So a lot of it's set top down, I guess. Take cool. Nice.
Yeah,
Well,
no.
For sure.
Yeah. We had a three-way there.
Yeah, good old three-way. I'd love to take it a step higher, and because Hook Logistics is just one part of your family of companies, and so we'd love to hear the Coles Notes version of how you guys came together, and a bit about the other portfolio, or your overall portfolio, and what you guys would like to turn it into. What would you like it to become?
No, great question. It actually precedes both me and Fraser, and that this company was founded by Michael Tucker and Sylvan Hahn in 2017 as a Diamond Hook, the agency. I got to join just over a year ago as the agency's creative director, and as recently as January 2020, that was our focus as a company, was providing quality marketing and branding services, often in the D2C space, but also a lot of like B2B professional services firms too. Everything changed when COVID hit. We had coincidentally started to expand into import-export, just as PPE shortages started to become like a serious problem, both in America and across the world in general. And thankfully, through CORCO's strong import-export connections, we were able to move into large wholesale contracts with major companies, and that allowed us to found the second company in the portfolio, Sussman and Hahn. Which in the past year has done, large wholesale PPE deals, as well as a manufacturing contract with Squatty Potty. And in the process of, to kind of bootstrapping this new import-export business, we learned how to do fulfillment extremely efficiently. And we realized it was going really well, even when it wasn't a formalized service that we were offering to anyone else. And that kind of organically led to the idea to found Hook Logistics and kind of complete this portfolio of companies that all revolve around e-commerce. And in terms of like a long-term objective, I think it really is that the idea of this like one-stop shop. You can come in, you can meet any of the companies, and maybe you just start out with like a small branding project, or maybe we handle your fulfillment as you're like setting up your company. But whatever service you need within the e-commerce space, you can just go to the other companies in the portfolio, and they can, we can effectively like found brands purely internally. And we're actually, exploring that right now, with a potential D2C play.
What does it take to do all of those things well and effectively? Like, I'm just, because in my own mind, I think, holy crap, you have all these companies, all these areas of expertise. I'm just curious of the makeup of people and talent, and yeah, if you could just speak briefly about what it takes to make that happen, I'd really appreciate that.
We're big believers that a couple of key people can really turn an operation into something meaningful. Fraser and Ray, one of the other principals on Hook Logistics, have done like an incredible job at whipping up this unprecedentedly and efficient operation. And I think that just shows like if you make the right hires, a new company can be one of the most competitive players in the space in a short timeline.
It fits exactly with a theme of that we're talking about all the time these days, of who, not how. And when you have to try to think about how to do something, it's a lot more challenging. But if you can think about who already knows how to do all this and can and then find a way to bring them in, it's just a really powerful way to do it. And it seems like that's the way, you guys have grown this portfolio of companies, bringing in, and like you're sort of autonomous, Fraser, as the CEO. You have a board that you report to, but this is your show.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's one of those things where, all of us describe either consciously or subconsciously to Murphy's Law that, what can go wrong will go wrong. And I think that if you have the right people in place that have the know-how, but that also are just willing to pivot and make moves as the market demands, you'll always be in a place where you can help people who need different services. And I think that's really what we've gone back to time and again with each of the portfolio companies is just stay agile and always say, I always say, how can I help, as opposed to, I don't know how to do this. And again, it goes back to, it starts with having expertise, but also just goes back to being able to be agile and stay with the market.
And solve your own problems.
Sorry.
Your whole company is sort
Exactly.
of built out of solving your own problems and then systematizing it, which is, it's sort of like it's a wayfinder as you build a company, that if it's able to spit off other valuable companies, then you know you're in a solid pursuit.
So you guys have obviously a breadth of experience, and like you mentioned, we're obviously in a bit of a new reality here, and we'd love to hear about what the biggest lesson or takeaways you've learned in the last 6 to 9 months in the DTC space.
Yeah, I guess I can take that one. I think that the biggest thing I've learned is that there's always a need for direct to consumer. I think and COVID really was actually the accelerator for that. And I think there's always a silver lining to everything, right? So, and I think if there's a silver lining to this whole kind of pandemic and how the past couple of months have gone, it's that this change was more or less imminent. This pivot to using DoorDash, to using Caviar, to relying heavily on e-commerce. I think these changes were all coming. I just think that they were accelerated, 10 or 20x due to the COVID pandemic. And I think it showed that there's always room for direct to consumer. And it doesn't have to be in these quintessential direct to consumer space. It doesn't need to be in skincare. It doesn't need to necessarily be, in CPG as a whole. It could really be anything. And I think you're seeing that now with, I saw a couple of direct to consumer brands for, I think like pregnancy tests. We carry a brand that does luxury diaper bags. So I think that there's really this all-encompassing theme of direct to consumer will always have a place, and it'll have an even bigger spot in our world in the future.
Very cool. Any from you there, Jacob?
Yeah, no, I think something that's really been interesting this year is you're seeing digital communities play an important role in like brand building. Of course, people have been talking about the role of like, content and publications in D2C for a long time, starting with Glossier, and to like, every brand that, has a media strategy. But yeah, I think it's like moved a bit beyond content, to actually like facilitating like connections and, creating spaces for like people to hang out and like feel like they're a part of something bigger than themselves. We've always been big advocates of, bootstrapping. Diamond Hook was initially founded with some outside funding, but, never VC funding. And I think, in this climate, we're seeing a lot of, brands start to be a bit more careful with their budgets, and really, think carefully about the financial decisions they're making rather than just like pursuing growth aggressively at all costs.
Nice. Yeah, I think that those are great pieces. Everyone, I don't know if you saw, did you guys see the video that was released 2 weeks ago? I don't even know if it was real at this point. You don't know if it is, but it's of a giant Amazon blimp, and it's just dropping all the drones out as they go and make their last mile deliveries, essentially. Like I wondered if you guys could muse a little bit on the future of this space and where you see this kind of like accelerating to in the next 6 to 9 months, which will, I think we've hit this. I think you're absolutely right. We've had 10 years of e-commerce growth in the last, 6 months. And I think it's going to continue at this pace kind of going forward. So I'd be interested in your thoughts on the future of this space.
Yeah, so I think in the next 6 to 9 months, I think one thing you'll see a lot more, and one brand does really well, Net-a-Porter, and it's definitely in New York City. I'm not sure if it's elsewhere, but they offer same-day delivery with their own vehicles, and I really think that those type of services are referred to as like van expediting services are becoming increasingly popular for same-day delivery, and it's not just going to be for perishables. Like, I think Amazon's done a great job with Whole Foods, and again, you go back to like Fresh Direct and Instacart. I think those same trends are going to come into the e-com space in general, and I think that shipping speed is going to become increasingly important. I think Prime really set the tone for that. I mean, two-day free shipping, even 5 years ago would be a crazy thought. So I think that the idea that you can offer free, or I should say same-day delivery, and then move to free same-day delivery in some major cities and even some outlying cities, I think is definitely not out of the question.
Well, what about you, Jacob?
And
I gotta get, we got Jacob on the call too. I gotta know if Jacob has any predictions for the future. Did you guys see the drone video that I was talking about?
No, I'd love to see it though.
I'll have to link it. Yeah.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah, no, yeah, Fraser, that's a great point about, the the standard that Amazon has helped set with Prime, and now that Walmart Plus is on the market, I think we're going to really see a kind of bifurcation where, if you're a staple, if you're a product that people like want to use consistently, you really have to consider how you're going to compete with, these like massive whales, that can get products to customers in just one day. And like a standalone D2C brand, unless you're, top 0.1% luxury product, you'll never be able to provide, that standard of fulfillment. So how are you going to stand out? Is your product going to be like way more interesting? Are you going to have a brand that like people connect with on a deep level? And what we talked about with communities, what we talked about, like innovative distribution strategies, these are all like much more important than they were, just like before Walmart Plus launched even.
Back when you could just launch a brand and
Yeah.
have it take the world by storm. I think, yeah, we're really seeing the evolution of the space, rapid
And
evolution.
and could you guys just talk a bit about like what are the major competitive advantages that an e-commerce brand would have from working with you as opposed to just Amazon?
Yeah, so as far as Amazon goes, I think, and I saw a great article about this. Amazon is a great tool and it's a great avenue to pursue as far as e-com fulfillment goes, but it's definitely not the be all end all. And I think that making that distinction as using Amazon as more of a sales channel as opposed to a fulfillment partner is actually a really interesting distinction to make, because I think that moving forward, you'll see that increased reliance on Amazon. Actually, again, it goes back to I'm a big bottom line type person, so I think it goes back to the bottom line. And I know as far as Amazon fulfillment goes, it can get pretty pricey. And again, it's great for advertising, it's great for brand identity, it's great for brand presence. However, there's also this necessary part of, okay, what kind of organic sales are we actually deriving from our site or from our paid social? And it goes back to, okay, we need an actual 3PL to help with this. So that's really the space that we fill.
Cool. Nice. Here's a question we like to ask towards the end of the podcast here. If you guys had a 50K business grant right now to apply to any part of the business within, let's say Hook Logistics, limit to Hook Logistics, what part, where would you put that money right now?
I think if we had a 50K grant, I would absolutely recapitalize in our existing infrastructure. I'm always a big, clean up our side of the street first, and then we'll kind of move to the other side. So I think if we had 50K on hand right now, we would definitely expand our internal New York-based operation as far as the physical footprint goes. I know it may sound as if I'm contradicting what I said before as far as the physical footprint, but this would be literally within the New York space. And then just build off that. I think that going back to the fundamentals piece, our vision is to have a perfect operation set in place here, and then expand, create another perfect operation, expand, so on and so forth. Amazon started out selling books. They got really good at selling books, and they started selling everything. So that's kind of the take we have, and that is that we want to do something, one or two things really, really well, and then expand, as opposed to doing 4, 5, 6, 7 things kind of well.
And what's the secret? Like these operations, these very physical warehouse operations, you've got people working there, on all ends of the pay scale. Like, how are you going about making a perfect experience? Like what sort of attention to processes are you creating? Or like, I'm really interested in that. And I love that idea of creating a perfect experience, but the work that goes into that in terms of training and SOPs and all that must be insane.
Yeah, it was actually funny. I was joking with my brother about this a couple of days ago, and when I was younger, I think I was kind of I was definitely very I was restless. I was definitely, it was very active. I was all this and all that, and he just started joking around. He said, Fraser's job now is to keep people organized, and he was not that when he was 5, 6, or 7 years old. And it really goes back to setting a great foundation to start. And that's why we love bringing on brands in the early stages, because you start those good habits early. So a lot of that is internal, but it's also external. So starting good fundamentals early for brands themselves, making sure their SKUs are in order, making sure their supply chain is in order, making sure all the good habits are set forth from the brand themselves, and carry those over into our own practices as well. And part of that piece is evidently technology, but there's also there's a lot of human capital involved. There's a lot of manual pieces involved, and that really just goes back to, again, the know-how and the willingness to get the job done.
Very cool. All right. So if people want to get in touch with you guys about Hook Logistics, about Diamond Hook, about any of the operations, they go to hooklogistics.com. Any special messages for people looking to engage you guys?
Definitely. So I think Jacob may have touched on it in the green room, so to speak. But yeah, this is busy season coming up, and we're actually helping a lot of our current brands prep for the holidays. So now's a great time to get involved with Hook Logistics, learn more about what we can offer, and allow us to be an asset to your team for not just the holidays, but moving forward.
Nice. Very good. I want to thank you guys for taking the time today. It was a lot of interesting stuff. Again, not an area of the business that I've experienced a lot, so it's always good to talk with some vets. Thank you guys, and we will see you in the newsletter again soon.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having us on.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys.